Everyone, and welcome back to Minding My Mental Health. I am Tenitria Williams. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Arkansas and in the state of Georgia. And we are here with another broadcast. Why are we having this broadcast? Because every episode, our goal is to tear down the stigma of mental health and bring awareness about mental health issues to our community. Today, I'm so excited to have our guest, Miss Sheena Thompson. She is an empowerment life coach. Welcome, 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 Sheena. Thank you, everybody. Before we get into it, you know what I want you to do. If you will hashtag live and let me know where you're watching from. And if you are watching this replay, hashtag replay. And again, let us know where you're watching from. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to put those in the comment section. Also, share this broadcast to your story, to groups that you are a part of, that you have permission to share to. Share it to your page, because this is a powerful, important topic that we're talking about today. And this is one that I know I've seen personally in obviously as a person, we have grief, right? And also as a professional, this is something that continues to come up, and it seems like it's been a lot lately. And I really wanted to tackle this because I believe that grief can obviously be life-changing, right? And so we wanted to bring in someone that could help us navigate through this. So again, we have Miss Sheena Thompson, who is a grief and life coach. And Sheena, welcome.
Yes.
Tell us about who you are. Who is Sheena Thompson?
Well, thank you, Tanisha, for thinking of me and having me. I'm a wife. I've been married for 16 years now. I have two beautiful daughters, Zion and Brielle, 14 and 11. And I am a co-pastor of Greater Vision Church. I'm an empowerment life and grief coach. I also have an online women's boutique. And so the empowerment life and grief coach is one of the things that I believe God positioned me into. I didn't really want to do it, but he would not, I couldn't let it go. And so I'm just so excited to be here. I'm excited that I'm able to help myself as well as help others and just be a blessing.
Well, again, welcome. Tell us, Sheena, what is a grief coach? Because for a lot of people, they've heard of life coaches. What's a grief coach?
A grief coach is a coach that helps people help themselves. One of the things that a grief coach does is we focus and concentrate on the future. We don't concentrate on the actual loss. We concentrate on how we move on from the loss and from the suffering. We concentrate on rebuilding your life back. And, you know, when we went through the pandemic, you heard a lot about, this is our new norm. Well, when you're going through grief, when you're going through loss, you have to create a new norm for yourself. And so that's what we concentrate on. Okay.
That's really powerful. Thank you. So you mentioned earlier, you said it was something that you felt like kind of called into, right? Tell us about that journey and how you got to that point.
In 2021, I did a broadcast for a friend of mine. She has a broadcast called Girl Talk in the Spirit. And I did the broadcast and they were talking about grief, and she had people calling in with questions, and they were just not really getting the help that they needed or couldn't find the help. And I was answering questions, but I still didn't really feel like I, wanted to be a grief coach. I didn't even know about grief coaching actually, And so I did the broadcast and I just, went on my way. Then I mentioned I have a boutique. I had a person call me for some items for the boutique, and I dropped them off at her house. And she asked me, I had never met this young lady, and she asked me if because she talked with me. And sure, not a problem. And her son was murdered. And I was at her house for like maybe 2 hours. And she was already going through counseling. And so I'm like, well, if you're going through counseling, and she had been going for years. And so again, her and I became connected. Even to this day, we're friends. And so still not really thinking about grief coach, grief. I had enrolled in the World Coach Institute for Empowerment and Life Coaching. And so my classes started in February of 2021. And that was the same time that we started Inner Circle, 2021. that February. And so I enrolled in the Word Coaching Institute, and the coach that did my first class, she was a substitute. Her name was Kathy. And she said, I'm a substitute because Brenda, I think had gotten sick or something. And I am a grief coach.
Mm.
And she told us a story about her daughter passing. And I just felt like the Holy Spirit was like, come on. You know what you're supposed to be doing. And so I'm enrolled in empowerment and life coaching, but then I have a conversation with her. And then I did, I just added on the grief coaching, and I'm glad that I did.
Okay. So now this is also not just something that you decided, oh, I want to do that. There was some personal grief that you've experienced. Tell us about your own personal journey with grief and how you went through your healing process.
My oldest daughter, Diavion, she passed away in 2010. She was 9 years old, and she was born with hydrocephalus, and that's bleeding on the brain, bleeding behind her eyes. At 1 year old, she was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. She was nonverbal. She couldn't talk. She couldn't walk. Mentally, just physically disabled. Mm-hmm. And so just that journey alone, the process was really, and I was a single mother from birth to when she turned 5. I married when she turned 5. And so I knew Diavion, she's my child. I'm taking care of her. But it never registered to me, or it never was said that this was like a life-threatening disease. So I'm her mom. I'm going to take care of her. And September 2010, we went to the beach on Labor Day. And school started that next day. So the week after that, she was sick, but it just was like flu symptoms. So I'm like, okay, back in school, you know how kids tend to, maybe catch something. And it's like a couple of days, her fever wouldn't go down. And I was like, telling my husband, we got to take her to the hospital. I'm still not thinking that it's something major. And we take her to the hospital. And when we get to the emergency room, she dies.
Wow.
They resuscitate her. So they resuscitate her, and she lives for about 2 weeks, and then she passes. And so I was like, it was like the wind knocked out of me. There's no explanation. I couldn't even explain it, because even if I was prepared, I think, sometimes when we're dealing with grief, I think we feel like we can deal with it better if it's something that we could prepare for. It was just something that was all of a sudden. I wasn't prepared. I can't believe this happened. And so it took me years to get my thinking together, to get through the guilt, to get through the shame, to get through the fear, to get through the regret, to get through blaming myself, to get through all of the emotions that are designed to keep us in depression.
So tell me how you did get through those other emotions that come up with grief.
Well, for me, I explain this to people. For me, it's the Word of God. Like, I've taught on mindset. I've taught on your words, but when you're going through something like that traumatic, you tend to forget everything that you were taught, everything that you spoke, everything that you taught on. I wasn't really thinking about watching my words or actually casting down my imaginations. I wasn't. And I really had to get myself back to that place, because I felt like, and when Jesus asked the man who was sitting and waiting for somebody to take him in the pool for 38 years, do you really want to be healed? And that's how it was for me.
Wow.
Because I kept going back and forth with the feelings and the emotions, and the enemy was really just attacking my mind. And I was like, if I do not get from this, I am not going to be here. I'm either going to kill myself, or I'm really going to be I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
And I had, Zion at that time, she was 1 year old. So she really didn't know what was going on. My marriage is suffering. I'm blaming my husband because, one of the things that we tend to think with grief is like everybody grieves the same, and they don't. And I was upset with him because I felt like, well, you're not even grieving because he wasn't grieving like me.
Right.
And now I'm upset with him. I'm angry. And, everybody grieves differently. I'm lashing out at him, and he's not her biological father. And I'm telling him, you're not her father. I mean, I was just in a really dark place. And now I'm not just hurting myself. I'm hurting my family. I'm hurting the church members. I don't want to be bothered. It was just a lot. And I just felt like nobody understood. As much as people say they do, you don't. If you have not lost a child, it's like I'm very careful with when I'm doing coaching, because if someone's child was murdered, like I mentioned earlier about, the young lady, I had to really have the compassion to try to understand. I don't understand because my daughter was sick. It's a difference. And so I just had to make a decision. And I think that's the key, Tanitra, is like, if you don't make the decision that you want to get from this, because like, what's the plan? What's the goal? I can't go back. I can't change what happened, but I can have a future. There is a future for me. And I think that what for me was when Diavion died, I thought my assignment died with it. And God was like, your assignment, you still have an assignment. You still have a purpose. I still have a plan for you. And I think when we're dealing with loss, we tend to like just drop it all. Everything's different now. I'm done. And that's what it was for me. I'm done. I had to make a decision to get myself together and rebuild my faith.
So you talk about your faith. Tell me how you balanced or navigated through that, because a lot of people, when it comes to loss, they lose faith.
Yeah.
Some people gravitate towards their faith, and that's a sense or a source of strength. But other people they're questioning faith. They say, how could this happen? And there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of resentment. How did you balance all of that together and come to a place where you were able to move forward in the healing process?
And I went through the same thing, because now I'm thinking my faith is weak. Because how can I allow my daughter to die? And see, that's where we are too with the I. And so now I'm not really even picking up my Bible.
Did you get angry with God?
I wasn't angry with God, because see, that's another thing, Tanitra. God does not kill our kids. It's not the will of God for us that, God needed them. And no, please stop saying that. That's not what it is. I know that this was the hand of the enemy. And then as I allowed my faith to rebuild, it wasn't. God showed me things that I didn't pay attention to because I was in this dark place. But then once I got out of the dark place, once I started meditating on the word, and that's how I started to rebuild my faith back up. I had to meditate on the word. So when the enemy tried to bring shame to me or tried to bring guilt to me, saying that you're not a good mother, this was your fault, you didn't even know she was sick, all of the things that he tries to bring upon you in your, in your thought process, because he will, that's his job. You have to be the one to say, no, I am a great mother. Even if it was sometimes I would be kicking and screaming and crying in my car, pulling over to the side. I would go into the bathroom. My family wouldn't know, but I had to speak God's word. And that's what helped me, speaking his word, not positive thoughts, God's word. Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I knew that was the only thing that was going to come against the enemy.
Was there something specific, a specific scripture or a specific word that you had that kind of helped you? Some people kind of get anchored with one word or one specific thing. Was there anything specific that really helped you through this?
Well, I did Joshua 1:8, meditate on his word day and night. Then, he heals the wounded and the brokenhearted. I was brokenhearted. And sometimes when we dealing with healing, we only thinking about like sickness and diseases and stuff. We're not thinking about someone hurting your heart, a breakup, because that's grief too, different types of grief.
Yeah.
And so my heart was broken. And as strong as I know I am, I kept saying, I can't do this. And that's, again, your words. I kept saying, I can't do this. I'm not going to make it through this. When is this going to stop hurting me like this? And I didn't realize, like I said, me knowing the power of my words, it was making it worse for me because I'm saying it and I'm saying it and I'm saying it. And that's what's manifesting. And so I was like, no, like, Sheena, you know the word. You know the word. And I've really had to get myself back into the word. And once I decided to do that, and, that was September of 2010 when Diavion died. My mother-in-law died December 2010. So now it's like, are you serious? It's a back-to-back thing. And then I was like, I can't do this. And so by January 2011, that's the decision. And I started making it, walking it out. It's not an overnight thing. It's a process. But once you start the process of the healing and the journey, and you're not trying to rush it, you're going to see God open up your heart and show you things that you didn't pay attention to or you didn't even see. Because even in January when I started, now God is showing me, did you ever think about her? How she was in pain? How she was having the seizures? How she had to go to all these different doctors? How she had to have the braces on her legs? How she had to do all the therapies? Did you think about her? And now I'm dealing with selfishness. I'm getting stripped of all the things that's not aligned with the word of God. And now I'm turning 40 in February. I turned 40 in February 2011. I was pregnant with Brielle March 2011. And that's not even something I prayed for. I didn't pray for another child. I didn't even want to have any more children. Yeah. But God knows what you need. It's not always about what you want. I promised God that if he healed Diavion, I would serve him all the days of my life. The healing may not have come the way I wanted it to, but she healed. And that's the thing. When God says no, are you still going to serve him? And he didn't say no. It just didn't happen the way I thought it was. And that's all a part of the journey you're going through. So
tell me, as you're going through this, I'm hearing obviously all types of emotions. And you mentioned about your husband saying you guys grieve differently. What are some of in your work that you see, or what are some of those common misconceptions when it comes to grief?
That women grieve more than men. And it's not that we just grieve differently. When his mother passed, it was silence, but I knew he was grieving. Even when Diavion passed, it was just different for him. He was emotional, and I think a lot. He was more hurt than I was, but it just didn't. We just different. It just showed differently, And the misconception of if you don't cry, you don't care. No, that's not true. Some people are just not like that, I'm crying, I'm screaming, I'm kicking, and, our response is our responsibility, just because he wasn't crying and, you know what I mean? I don't know what he was doing when I wasn't around him. you know? And so we, you know, the misconception of time heals all wounds. No, it doesn't. It's what you do in that time, because you'll see people who are, you know, feel like it's not an issue for them, or they're healed, and, you know, and it's because of what they're doing with their time. What are you doing with your time?
So for somebody who's watching this right now and they're actively, they lost a mom, a child, or somebody, and they're saying, I don't even know what to do with my time at this point. I'm just trying to make it through the day. What do you say to them? Like, what do you do with your time that helps in the healing process?
Pray and listen, because sometimes we pray and we're asking God to heal our hearts. We're asking God to remove the pain and remove all the emotions, the guilt. And we sometimes just have to listen. You know, we pray, we believe God. I was praying and still saying I couldn't do this. And so now I'm contradicting the prayer. Now it's not working, because I'm either going to believe God or I can't do this. And so we have to be very, very mindful of our mindset, of our words, of, you know, just asking God to help us through this situation, but listen to what he's telling you to do. Because even with me doing the grief coaching and me going through the class and everything, it was a great help to me. And I learned more in inner circle in regards to grief than I did with this coaching class. And inner circle wasn't a grief class. It was, you see, it was a soul shift. It was you shifting your soul. And so I needed that too. And so sometimes you need the extra. You may need the grief coaching or the grief counseling, whatever God is telling you to do, but have an open heart and an open mindset. If he's telling you to do something else and you're like, well, that has nothing to do with what I'm going through, you can learn from it. Because I learned through the inner circle the forgiveness exercise. That's something that I use in my coaching.
Yeah.
That's something that I did not learn through this coaching, you know, certification. You know, I've learned that I had to stop training myself to suffer.
Talk about that.
You know, playing the victim, liking the attention. Do you really want to be healed, or you want the attention? And sometimes that's the thing of going back and forth. Oh, I really want to be healed. I really want to set goals so that I can move forward, not move on, move forward from the loss and the suffering. And so you either going to, sometimes we just like attention. You know, we want people to feel sorry for us. We want people, you know, to just, you know, open up their arms. And it's great that you really want the comfort, but sometimes people want to vent. Like, I give people, you got that first session with me to tell me your story. After that story, we're not going back to the story. It's moving forward now. What are we going to do? What are you going to do? What can you do? Or what do you think God is telling you to do to move forward? And so, because we'll keep talking about it. And now you're moving forward, but then now it resurfaces. You're right back to where you were before. And so it's consistency, being consistent in the journey.
Yeah.
And those are the things that, you know, we're not taught to do. We're not even taught how to deal with grief, and especially in the Black community. We're not taught.
So one of the things, like I said, I'm a counselor, so people obviously come in with grief, right? And one of the things when people first started coming in, I remember it was several years ago, I had 1 week and every person that came in my office came in with a significant loss. And it was like, I lost my mom, my wife, those. I was like, whoa, I immediately went and got some extra training. And I just felt so inadequate to be able to help. Because what I wanted to do, because I like to fix a problem. or not necessarily fix the problem, but I like to be able to leave and saying, okay, now that's better. And with grief, I couldn't say your child is back. I couldn't say your mom is back. And so at a point I was feeling somewhat helpless. And I started learning through that process and, additional training. And again, just experience of working with the clients. What I started to see was sometimes people needed to have a place where they could express themselves without the guilt and shame.
Right.
Also needed a place where they could process through some of those underlying emotions, like you were talking about, guilt.
Right.
Because there are a lot of mindsets, if I had been a better mom, if I hadn't done this,
Yes.
I would have gone to see grandma one last time.
Right.
Those types of things that will really eat away at you unless you're able to say, this isn't a healthy way of thinking about this. Even if I had gone to see grandma, that doesn't mean that the outcome would have been any differently.
Absolutely.
Grandma knew I loved her. Me and grandma talked all the time. Me going there was not out of, or me not going there wasn't a sign of disrespect. Like all of those types of small that seem small, they will literally torment people.
Right. Yes.
Like you were saying, what kind of mom didn't know their child was sick? The kind that didn't have a medical background.
Right.
Even if you did, you still there are just so many little things. And I think people don't realize how much the mindset plays in healing in general when we're talking about our mental health, when we're talking I should have done this when they were younger. I shouldn't have done you just start to play those stories that aren't healthy. And so I love the fact that you were saying you were able to really get in there and start to attack a lot of those mindset issues.
Yes.
That come about when people are grieving. So obviously we just went through Mother's Day.
Yes. For
Mother's Day, it is one of those holidays you're like, it's a lot of other emotions surrounding Mother's Day.
It is.
People who have lost their mom. You have people who have lost their children. Then you have people who are estranged from mom. All of those things, right? All of it is grief.
All of it. Yes, it is.
All is grief, whether your mom is alive and you have an unhealthy relationship with her, that's still grief. All of those things. How did you, or how would you tell people to deal with those tough, holiday moments or those triggering moments? Because it's not always Mother's Day, right? I just that one just passed. But there are a lot of triggering moments. Maybe it's a birthday, it's an anniversary, it's Christmas, it's whatever. Yeah. How do you help people to navigate through those types of moments?
I help them by telling them to be intentional about gratitude in regards to gratitude. I'm intentional because it was Diavion's birthday in the month that she passed. So when September came, when August came, I had already shut down for September.
In anticipation. Wow.
And then, Labor Day. So I'm remembering when we went on the beach. I'm remembering it. And it was like the whole month of September. It was like my family was walking on eggshells with me. Because no. Then my birthday's in February, and then March would come. I just hated those 2 months. And so I had to be intentional about gratitude. I made myself intentional. It all starts in your mind. It really does. You have to make a decision that I will not allow this thing to beat me. And I started to make a decision. I said, when September came, I said, I'm going to celebrate all month. And it was hard. It was challenging, but I did it. And then her birthday came, I celebrated her birthday. I got balloons. The girls made cards. We were focusing on the future. And so I don't visit the gravesite. She not there. That's a trigger. You got to know your triggers.
And for some people that may actually help them, right?
You got to know your triggers. That might be something that comforts people. That wasn't something that comforted me. And that's why I don't get to the point where I'm telling someone this is what I did. This is what you should do.
Right.
Because what God has for me helped me. You really have to ask God, what do you want me to do? And hear from him. And so I'm very Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. And so for me, I'm thankful throughout the year, not just Thanksgiving. And so does that mean I don't still cry? I still have my days.
Right.
I still have days where I'm, feeling like, and it's because I miss her so much. It's the missing. My tears are different. And so when I have those days, I give myself 10 minutes. Sheena, get yourself together, and then now I'm in conversation where, what you doing, Diabian? You walking up there, you talking to Jesus, and it helps me because I know she's healthy. I know she's whole now, and so you really have to be intentional about gratitude, being thankful, not thankful that you lost a person or the way you lost a person, but thankful that I'm thankful for the years. I'm thankful God chose me to be her mother. I'm thankful that he trusted me, that he knew that I would take care of her the way that I did. I'm thankful that I'm saved and that my daughter is in heaven. I had to come to a decision that I was okay for her decision to go to heaven because it was her decision. I believe God told me, he showed me, and especially when you're dealing with loved ones that are sick, we have to be okay and know that even through their illness and sickness and things that they're going through, their angels, they're talking to their angels. And I never thought about Diabian talking to her angels, talking to Jesus. I'm thinking, no, I'm her mom. She's my responsibility. I take care of her. But I remember taking her to the hospital. I remember going back when we were on the beach that Labor Day. She was so happy. And she was on the beach smiling. I never seen her that happy. Looking back now, she knew. I was just like, Lord, but I was so emotional with all the other junk in my mind. He started to show me stuff. When I took her to the hospital, she was laying in the back seat of the car with her hands raised to heaven.
Wow.
And even when they resuscitated her and we praying, we at the hospital, we believe in God, we in faith, we talking the word and everything. And I never left that hospital. And I was asking God, like, why is she not fighting? Why is she not fighting? What? And he said, daughter, she has fought for 9 years.
Wow.
Let her go. That right there, even though I knew that's what I was supposed to do, that was one of the hardest things. And people get to decide if they really want to stay here or if they want to go with Jesus. And I believe she wanted to go with Jesus. Did that help my heart more? No. Nope, it still didn't. I still was in that because I miss her.
Yeah, of course.
I miss her. And I had to be okay with that decision.
You said something about kind of learning to create that gratitude and that those new normals, celebrating her birthday in a different way, all of those things. One of the things I've tell my clients oftentimes is you have to give yourself permission to be happy again.
Yes.
I think one of the misconceptions is that I'm no longer honoring my loved one if I celebrate, if I'm happy.
Yes.
If I do these things, it's like, no, as a sign of my love for them, I have to stay sad and in this place. And I'm going, no, you could give yourself permission because your loved one loved you as well. And
Yes.
they want you to be able to heal and to be able to move forward and being able to live your life and to do amazing things and to continue to create beautiful memories with the loved ones that you still have on earth with you. And so I think that was really powerful that you basically did that. You gave yourself permission
Yes.
to say, this is not dishonoring her. In fact, I'm honoring her life by continuing
Absolutely.
to live my life in a whole manner, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You talked about just your own process. I know when it comes to grief, people say and do some of the most ignorant things
Yeah.
around. I mean, you just hear stuff and you go, why would you say that to someone?
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that someone can say to someone that's grieving that's actually a positive or a healthy thing to say? How do we interact with our loved ones that are grieving in a way that doesn't leave them wanting to punch us in the face or have some crazy misconception about the way life works? What would you say to that?
First, my thing was always, I'm so sorry that you're going through this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes for me, it's not saying anything at all. It's depending on the situation. I have a pastor friend who last year buried both of her children.
Mm.
2 kids. She had 2 kids, and they spent the majority of their life in the hospital because they were born sick.
Wow.
And I couldn't attend the funeral because you know your triggers. But I didn't know what to say. Even with the loss of my child, she's 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was like, Lord, I don't know what to say. And it's like, don't say anything. And that sometimes is helpful. Sometimes we think when people's like, oh, I'm not, I don't want to, I want to say something. But if you're saying the wrong thing, silence is better than saying the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're not saying anything doesn't mean that you're not compassionate, And so for me, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I'm sorry for your loss, but don't tell people to get over it. Don't tell people, right. One of the things that it bothered me so much, and especially, and it always came from people who didn't lose a child. She's in a better place. I know that. I know she in heaven. But it doesn't negate the fact that I want her here. It
right.
doesn't negate the fact that she was a 9-year-old child that, had a life, And so it's just just don't think, okay, the first thing I think I'm going to say.
Right.
No.
Right.
Ask the Lord, what should I say to this person? How can I help them? Not just saying what you think is going to make that person feel better, because 9 times out of 10, it may not, And so, it's comforting just to let people know I'm here for you.
And that's really what I found as well, being able to just be like my presence.
Yes.
Like I said, sometimes it was challenging some mindset things, but other times it was literally just allowing them space to be, not space to do, but just space to be.
Yes.
Like they're like, I had a really rough day, and it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I think too, a lot of times people don't know what to do, so they want to talk
right.
The silence because they're uncomfortable with silence.
Right.
Silence actually is not a bad thing.
It's not. Right.
Because
and check in.
Not a lot of words to say.
Yep. And check in on people. My close friends, her birthday, they texting me or calling me, happy birthday to Dion, and in September, when the date of her passing, we missing Dion, but we know Dion is, up there with Jesus, they check in with me every, now and again, you doing good? What's going on? How are you doing today? How Mother's Day, are you good today? And again, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm able to have my moments where I'm able to just step aside and be like, Lord, I'm really missing her today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love her. You know, I really miss her. And I get my cry out. I get, you know, and then I'm reminded of the memories. I'm reminded of her smell.
Mm.
I'm reminded of how she used to lay her head on my shoulder. And those are the things that I tend to envision and I remember, and I'm like crying, but I'm smiling. My heart is happy. I feel so light. It's like a weight has been lifted off of me. And it's a journey that you can really say, this is a hard journey, and it is, but it does get better if you allow it to.
Mm.
If you allow it to. I'm tearing up now, but my heart is happy. I'm happy that I'm not all over the place crying. I'm able to sit here and have a conversation.
Right.
I'm able to sit here and talk about this without me leaving the room.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this anymore. That was my story.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when I look back and I see how God was positioning me for this, it was fear. I didn't want to do it because that's why I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to sit here, like you said, oh my God, you got these people coming in, their child died, moms, and I honestly, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Because now it's bringing up emotions for me.
Mm-hmm.
And God was like, no, you're okay. And I'm okay.
Yeah.
I am okay. I'm able to help people. I'm able to sit down and walk them through the loss of a loved one,
Mm-hmm.
to get them to get back to a new norm for them.
Yeah.
And that new norm doesn't mean that it won't be better. You know, I'm thankful for Zion and Brielle. I see her in them. It's certain things. I'm like, oh my God, you know. We talk all the time. I talk to her as if she was sitting in this chair. And that's they're with you.
Mm-hmm.
They're with you. It doesn't always have to be a sad thing. They're with you, you know. And then I say, you know, Diaviana's up there with my mother-in-law. She's up there now, you know, with my grandmother, you know, with my grandmother, her great grandmother. And so I just, you know, you just really have to make the decision. It is a mindset
Mm-hmm.
thing. And you can't really even change. People have to make that decision for themselves.
Yeah.
You can kind of walk them along to, you know, navigate them, to give them some principles or strategies or techniques, but they have to make the decision.
Are there any principles or strategies or techniques that you could say, you know, these things can help?
Again, remembering the good times, you know, and especially like with parents, sometimes when we think about our mother and our father, like my father died 2021 July, and he had an addiction, and him and my mom had been divorced. Our relationship wasn't the best, but I remember him. He taught me the Bible. He taught me the word. We had to go to Bible study, and sometimes your parents may not be living the life that they want you to live. But I'm so grateful. I was like, I'm thankful that's the thing. I didn't think about the drug addiction. I didn't think about all the negative stuff. I'm thinking about the things he taught me that he wanted me to learn to live my life for God. And so when we're thinking about our loved ones, Don't think about what they didn't do, what they couldn't do. Think about the things that they did to help you. Think about the things they did that they wanted to do, that maybe they couldn't do. You know, I think about all of the good things with Diavion. And I had to get, again, a process to get from the guilt, the shame, the fear. Because now when you're going through those emotions, especially with the fear, because now when I was going through the fear, I'm dealing with the fear towards my other daughters, because now I'm
Right.
afraid for their lives. Now I'm afraid that something's going to happen to them. Now when they get sick, I was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
we really had to meditate. You really have to meditate on the things of God to get you to a place where, you know, you're able to navigate when the enemy comes with the negative thoughts. You're able to say, no, that's not me. That's not for me. No, I'm a great mother. I did the best that I could. You know, I'm strong. You know, I have the mind of Christ.
Yeah. And challenging those thoughts with words. I think that's
Words. Yep.
it happened in your mind, but you opened your mouth and said it out loud. And I think that's one of those things that I teach my clients as well. I'll say, you know what? When that thought of I should have done this, like I did the best that I could. I did everything that I could based on the knowledge that I had at that time. Because obviously there are a lot of different circumstances that can happen to people. And there are a lot of narratives that are playing in their heads. If I had just did this, or if I just talked to this doctor, or if I hadn't went to go get some chicken while they were, like all of those things start to play out. And it's just the mind racing to try to make things make sense.
Yes.
And you do have to open your mouth and say, I did these things, and knowing how to challenge that unhealthy thinking. So as we are getting ready to close, tell me, what would you say, any advice? One of the things I heard you say a couple times was, number one, be mindful of the words you speak. Don't say things like, I can't make it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never be able to be happy again. Those types of words. So be mindful of your words. I also heard you say, challenge and really pay attention to your mindset. What am I thinking? Is this taking me to a healthy place, or is this taking me to a place of depression and shame and all of those things? What else would you say besides watching your words and minding your mind? What else would you say?
I would say be kind to yourself.
That's a big one.
Give yourself grace.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's not an overnight process. So don't feel like if it does resurface, those emotions, okay, I feel like these emotions are resurfacing. Let me get myself back over to the other side, you know? And so don't beat yourself up. I can't never get over this. I'm not going to be able to, you know, because you feeling like this is just too much. No, be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace.
One thing I see too when people are struggling is it's this instantaneous thing they want to happen.
Yes.
So it's like losing a loved one in January, and by February they're like, why am I still crying? I go,
yeah,
because you lost somebody you love. That's why you're still crying.
Yes.
Or February 13th, they're going, why in the world is this still hurting? Go, because there was a deep love.
Yes.
You know, and sometimes I don't think people actually have an adequate idea of, or I guess an understanding that it's okay to still have those feelings. For years, right? And if somebody actually asked the question last week, I did a Q&A, and one of the questions came up about grief, and it was like, how do you start to know when it's healthy? Like when, hey, I'm just crying, I'm okay. You're in a healthy place, right? But you still have moments where you may cry. That doesn't mean you're not.
I'm not in a healthy place.
In a healthy place,
right?
And I think people have to understand that as well. You still can miss somebody and maybe tear up and have those moments. That doesn't mean you're not healthy. It doesn't mean but now if you were still every day, I can't get up out of bed and I'm suffering with so
Right.
much guilt, and I'd go, okay, that's not healthy. And so I think it's, am I able to continue to move forward?
Yes.
Is
You
it
are.
to me is
Yep.
kind of one of those signs of, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I can have a pause. If you're running a marathon, you may still take a
Right.
break. Like give me that water cup. Let me do something, but I'm going to keep going. And I think when it's the stuckness, we start looking at, is this healthy? And also the way we cope. You coped with the word of God.
Yes.
You coped with prayer. You cope
Yes.
with all of those things. There are other people that cope with maybe alcohol. There are other
Yes.
people that
Mhm.
cope with drugs or sex or
Yes.
something else. And I think it's important for us to go, is this actually helping me?
Right.
I'm drinking a
Mhm.
lot. Is this helping me? Well, I
Mhm.
feel better. I don't feel as much. Maybe that, they're going,
Right.
it helps
Because
because
they
I
want to
don't
get
feel.
right. They're trying to get rid of the feeling. And
Mm.
I always tell people, because sometimes with clients, they'll say, "Oh, I'm doing good. I'm mastering this." And it's like, okay, but what you're really trying to do is you're really just trying to get the hurt, the pain, everything that's going on. You just really want it to go fast. It's like, and it's not like this, but when younger, you break up, you have a breakup, and you like, I just want this to be gone, this hurt. Well,
Mhm.
within maybe a month, depending on how the breakup went or whatever the relationship was, that it's going to be, eventually it gets better. It gets better. It's different with grief and,
Mhm.
with a loss. It's different. And, I've grieved differently. I was married in my 20s, and it was a different grief.
Mhm.
It was a different grief when I had a miscarriage in 2009. It's different. And so a lot of times we're just so bent on, I just want to feel better. I just need to feel better. I got to get this off of me. And we just don't do it correctly.
Yeah.
We don't do it healthy. You have to do it healthy, because what it does is you're going to resurface those emotions again. And
Yes.
now you're doing something different to get rid of all of those negative emotions.
Yeah. And so I think it's really important that people do understand there are some healthy ways of coping. Like
Yes.
we were talking prayer, saying the word of God. But even if it was somebody that wasn't a believer, there are still some things that you can do,
Yes.
like moving your physical body,
Mm-hmm.
getting up, getting some sunlight, walking,
Yes.
challenging those unhealthy ways of thinking, all of those
Yes.
things. I've even had clients write their loved ones like a letter,
Letter.
kind of
Yes.
a
Yes.
closure letter. Sometimes it's closure, sometimes it's just an
Yes.
update letter. Like,
Yes.
hey, this is what's going on in my world.
Mm-hmm.
And they just feel like, whew, I didn't realize I needed to just kind of release that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's, especially for those people that struggle with the guilt of, I didn't get to say goodbye, or there was bad blood between us. And those
Yes.
writing a letter saying, I forgive you, or I miss
Mm-hmm.
you, I love you, goodbye. All of those things, those are some practical steps that people can do as well. Writing those kind of closure letters, or those goodbye letters, or those I forgive you letters, or this is what I needed to say to you letters. Obviously they're not physically going to read that, but it's helpful for people sometimes to get that out and kind of like, okay, I was able to deal with that.
Yes.
Did you do, or do you recommend anything else for people?
And when you say writing the letter, and I think like for me with grief, God was just showing me so many different things, not just pertaining to the loss of the Avion. Some other emotions in regards to my love walk. I had to write a forgiveness letter to her dad because I was really upset that you didn't take care of her, that you didn't come to her funeral.
Wow.
You dealing with so much stuff that you're not even
You
realizing.
didn't even connect with the grief. Yeah.
And so it's once you make that decision, I know for me, God was just allowing me to see the things that needed to be stripped from me.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like that was connected to this and that. And it's like, wow, but you can't see that if you don't make the decision to walk
Yeah.
out of the dark place, out of the negative, the emotions. You gotta stay focused on the goal. What's the goal?
And I think it's really important to note the healing process does not always feel good. And like you were talking about, writing a letter to your child's father who wasn't there after the loss of your child, that is not going to feel good to your flesh. That is like no part of that is going to feel good, right? Having to forgive yourself can be really hard. Having to forgive other people, those types of things, I think understanding that process is not a pretty process, but it is a necessary process so that you can walk in that wholeness, in that beauty, that healing.
Absolutely.
And so I definitely appreciate you sharing your story, you sharing all of those things. When I see your smile, when I see you posting in the boutique, you have a Brielle, I have a Brielle. Just looking at how you have continued to just move forward, it's really encouraging. And so when I knew I wanted to talk about grief, I was like, I know who I want. I want to get Sheena on here to kind of help people to really navigate through that. And I really do hope that this has been healing for some people and brought some enlightenment and some understanding. If you guys have any questions or comments, put those in the comment section. If you need to reach Sheena, how can people reach you if they want to do some grief coaching, or if they want to do heck, they may just want to be cute and want to do some shopping? How can they reach you to connect?
I could be reached through my Facebook page. I have a Life After Loss page. My website is www.sheenathompson.net. My boutique is Styles by Sheena, and that's my Facebook page. And or you can just follow me on my regular Facebook page, Sheena Thompson.
Okay. I hope people are reaching out. And of course, you guys know you can reach me at where you're watching here. You can send me an inbox through social media. You can also reach me at Tenitria@gmail.com if you need anything. Again, I think this is powerful. We may have to have you back again, because I know this is one of those topics that just it just hits so many people,
Yes.
And grief just can hit. And I tell people also, grief comes in waves.
Yes, it does.
It's not we finished that process, because we were taught the what is it, the life cycle, the grief cycle, the cycle. And it's grief, you deal with this, and then there's the anger, and then you go with the depression, and then once you hit acceptance, and it's portrayed as if once you hit acceptance, life just floats along, and you go, no,
and then it's something else,
right? You go, well, you can hit acceptance, and then one day you go back over here to anger.
Yes. And that's why I was, I'm mastering things. I'm mastering things, and I'm just skipping along like, woo, and then one day I'm driving and I see my daughter's father. And so you thinking you in forgiveness, I forgave him. But it's like when you see somebody you thought you didn't forgive and you see him, it was a whole different. I just felt the emotions boiling again. And you're talking about emotions about child support. Like, really, Sheena?
Yeah.
And so now I got to go back and do forgiveness exercise. Go back. Why am I still in this place? And see, that's the question that we really have to ask ourselves when we do resurface stuff. Okay, why am I in this place? What triggered me to, like, even though I saw him, I should have still been able to see him, and I want to be able just to see him and speak or whatever, but what am I not dealing with that got me right back here?
Yeah.
It's
some powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So I know there may be some people that are watching that even as she's talking about forgiveness, something comes up and you go, I need to forgive either this person, these people, myself, all of those things. Reach out if you need some help walking through this stuff, because it is, I've seen people, grief really can do a number if you're not active and intentional about the way you handle it. And so again,
Right.
thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching. If this helped you, share this broadcast, like my page, so you'll be right back every Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We have the Minding My Mental broadcast. You don't want to miss it. Why? Because we, again, are tearing down the stereotype and the stigma of mental health in our community, this specifically the African American community, but our community at large. So again, thank you, Sheena. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you, and join us right back here next Monday. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
I'm
Tanisha.
sorry, next Thursday.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.